Welcome to another episode of Eco Talks. Today we have Professor Deidun, an expert in marine biology. We'll discuss Malta's unique marine life, the challenges our oceans face, and what we can do to protect them. So, Professor Deidun, what first inspired you to pursue a career in marine biology? And was there a particular moment or experience that set you on this path?
Yes, so thank you for this invitation. I would say that the defining moment which got me along the marine biology path was when a group of friends, that I formed part of with at university, where we had just finished our first degree together, the BSc Chemistry and Biology, and we decided to go for a diving course. So to follow a diving course locally. And that obviously opened new horizons because till that point I was interested in the underwater life, but I was restricted by the fact that I could only snorkel or free dive. But once you actually go for scuba diving, you can go to deeper depths and extend your stay underwater for much longer. And that I think was the defining moment, which really convinced me that this is the path that I wanted to go for, to follow. So I would say yes, that was the defining moment which got me into marine biology, basically.
Malta's waters are known for their beauty and marine life. What do you think makes our seas so special, especially when it comes to diving and marine biodiversity?
Yeah, so I would say there's two or three, let's say three reasons, which basically are mainly responsible for our rich biodiversity. So I would say, first of all, in general, our waters are really clear and transparent. And why is this important? Because obviously having a high transparency is crucial to support, populations of photosynthetic organisms, the so-called producers, you know, which are amongst the most important creatures in marine ecosystems because they are at the basis of food chains. They are at the first trophic level. So the more producers, such as seagrasses, for example, such as our own the Posidonia, Neptune seagrass, the bigger the populations of these producers, obviously, the richer, the more productive the marine ecosystem is. So that would be the first one. Second one, I would say, is the richness in the variety of seascapes, underwater seascapes that we have. Okay, the different landforms underwater that we have, and so on. So the geology, so we have reefs, we have sandbanks, we have caves, we have tunnels, we have sheer drop-offs. So and these can support obviously a mesmerizing array of different benthing habitats. So that would be the second one. And thirdly, I would say it's the interesting paleo history, old history of the Mediterranean. It's sort of the descendant of an ancient sea, okay, which was called the Tethys Sea. And the Mediterranean has always, and its ancestors have always been at the center, you know, bit, joining several different regions and seas together. So it's sort of a meeting point between different seas. And as a result, the Mediterranean has an estimated 18 to 20,000 marine creatures, of which a good proportion, it's estimated that around one quarter are endemic, i.e. not found anywhere else outside the Mediterranean, including Posidonia oceanica.
Okay. With all the challenges facing our oceans today, how crucial is marine conservation? And in your opinion, what are the biggest threats we need to address moving forward?
Obviously, it's essential. I would say marine conservation is not only crucial, it's essential. And I'll explain why. Nowadays, the role played by the ocean in climate regulation. Okay, what do I mean by climate regulation? For example, the ocean absorbs a lot of the excess heat and part of the excess carbon dioxide that we are generating. So it's one of our allies in combating climate change. So because of this important role, today you cannot speak about the climate if you don't speak about the ocean. There is this ocean climate nexus. So that's one thing why we should conserve the ocean. The ocean nowadays is increasingly playing an important role in, for example, providing us with protein. There's a bigger demand for protein, obviously, to feed the world's growing population, and more of that protein is coming from the ocean. And we mustn't obviously forget that a lot of the trade happens via shipping. About 80% of the global trade, okay, happens there, and we're getting a lot of novel products besides food, besides the fish we eat, the crustaceans we eat, and so on. But we're getting a lot of novel products in the form of pharmaceuticals, for example, even replacements for plastic. Are being made from seaweed nowadays. There's companies producing those. So, the ocean is giving us so many services, and therefore the conservation of the ocean is essential in today's world.
How have alien marine species spread into Malta's local waters, and what environmental impact have they had? And can you highlight a significant example?
Yes, Issa, Malta obviously is in the middle of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is serviced by the world's largest fishing canal, shipping canal, which is called the Suez Canal. It's the largest in terms of volume of shipping. Okay, so it's the largest in the world. And one way through which invasive alien species jump from one marine region to another is through shipping, either in the ship's belly, through ballast water, or by attaching to the side of the ship as fouling organisms, or by swimming passively through the canal itself. So having this Suez puts you right on the front line of being invaded by these alien species. There are other ways through which invasive alien species enter our waters, not just through shipping. For example, through the aquarium trade. So people would buy exotic species and then deliberately release them in our waters. And there's also they could be spread as contaminants in aquaculture. So they would escape from aquaculture, from fish farms, and so on. I would say that one of the most invasive species we have in our waters at the moment is the blue swimmer crab. Blue swimmer crab, it's not the only one, but it's probably one of the most invasive we have in our waters. At the moment, we still haven't recorded the lionfish in our waters, but I think it's a question of time until this happens.
Marine pollution, especially plastics, is a global problem, how you were saying before. What's being done in Malta and at the international level to tackle marine pollution, and how can individuals make a difference?
Yes, so marine pollution in general, not just plastic, is tackled through various international agreements, European agreements, Mediterranean-wide agreements, and even through local legislation. So at different levels. For example, and we distinguish between different types of pollution. So there are international agreements at the UN which deal with pollution from ships, such as oil, such as chemical pollution, for example, such as garbage and litter, so solid waste and so on. Okay. Then there's other agreements which deal with pollution coming from land, from rivers, from runoff, and so on. So there's different components of pollution. So as an individual, we shouldn't obviously just rely on these international agreements. We need to do our part as well. For example, avoiding taking as much as possible single-use plastic utensils close to the sea. Okay, because they might accidentally end up into the sea. Because they get blown over out at sea and you cannot recover them, for example. Okay, and make sure that anything we use when we are at the sea, and which is plastic or synthetic, is recovered. So even sometimes, you lose the smallest things out at sea. Even, I don't know, a bandage, even that is litter. So you have to be careful what products we use as well, close to sea and so on. Even using things in our homes, because anything which ends up in the sewerage system ends up into the sea eventually, which, as much as possible, contain the small amount of microbeads and so on. Okay, Esa, what is being done in Malta? Obviously, Malta has introduced measures to ban single-use plastic in Malta. Nowadays, it's very difficult, or more difficult, let's say that, to get single-use plastic bags. Okay, even though they're still around, but we're not producing them or exporting them, at least. Okay, there is the plastic bottle recovery system, the famous BCRS. Okay, which also helped to recover plastic bottles. I think we are recovering something like 80% of all the plastic bottles being sold out through this system. Okay, obviously we can always do more. But I think as individuals, it's important to reduce our dependence and our use of single-use plastic.
Malta's area is vast, but how much of it has actually been explored? And are there still large areas of the underwater environment that remain a mystery?
Good question. Yes, if we take Malta's territorial waters, which extend to 12 nautical miles, those extend for 13 times our terrestrial area. But if we consider the fisheries management zone, which extend to 25 nautical miles, which is that area where Malta has sovereignty, okay, has jurisdiction over who fishes, okay, the ratio is even higher. It's around 38 is to 1. So we have 38 times more sea, more water, then we have land. Okay, we have explored good part of it, but still there are chunks of that marine area, especially the deep areas, those which extend to the hundreds of meters or even to the thousands of meters, because we have part of our waters which extend very well beyond the 1000 meters, which haven't been explored obviously due to logistical reasons and due to cost, because obviously to explore these areas you need special equipment like ROV, remote operated vehicles, or sonar based techniques like multi-beam sonar and so on. And these are quite costly, expensive. These would cost thousands of euros per day in order to operate. But luckily, we've explored enough of our waters to be able to designate a large number of MPAs. In fact, we have a total of 18 MPAs, marine protected areas, nowadays in our waters, some of which are in deep waters and are pretty much offshore.
Malta is known for its rich marine biodiversity, but it's also popular with tourists. How can you balance sustainable tourism with marine conservation?
Yes, good point. There's a lot we could do here because, unfortunately, at the moment, most of our tourism is unsustainable in the sense that it's concentrated in the summer season, in the peak season, even though numbers of tourists have increased in the shoulder months as well. So at least it's this concentration of tourists, this seasonality, is not as acute, is not as accentuated as it was in the past. But still, we get that peak in summer. So that's one thing, okay? We should spread out as much as possible over over the shoulder months. And secondly, obviously, try to promote sustainable and responsible enjoyment of our marine protected areas with visitors and with locals. In fact, a few years ago, I was leading this project called Corallo, which is an Italia Malta, which was funded under Italia Malta program, which was promoting the sustainable and responsible enjoyment of marine protected areas in Malta. So we came up with a code of conduct, the do's and the don'ts. When you are in a marine protected area, for example, don't anchor on seagrass meadows, for example, avoid single-use plastics when you're going to the beach, for example, avoid handling any marine creatures. Okay, just limit your footprint to taking photos, for example, and there's so much more that we can do, obviously, keep at a certain distance from sensitive creatures such as cetaceans when you are on a boat and so on, so to not to disturb them and so on. We try to reduce our underwater noise generation as much as possible. We reduce artificial light at night, because artificial light at night has an impact on marine creatures and so much more. So we really need to be responsible when we're visiting marine protected areas, and we promote this code of conduct and this responsible enjoyment protocol even with visitors to our islands.
What advice would you give to young people or students interested in pursuing careers in marine biology or environmental studies?
Yes, my advice would be this, keep your dreams alive, because the world really needs you and needs more young scientists, especially in this day and age when science and the validity of science and the relevance of science is being questioned, unfortunately, including by the Trump administration. We really need people who work in science, especially in the earth and environmental sciences, because obviously we know that the world is in crisis when it comes to biodiversity. We have a climate crisis and a biodiversity crisis. So we need more people who are studying these phenomena and coming up with innovative ways of how we can reduce and address such crises. And only you can do it. So you're the next generation of scientists, and you should keep your dreams alive. And nowadays there's a whole portfolio of different courses at the University of Malta which you can follow. And therefore, we really need people like you, and you shouldn't get disheartened in any way, but you should continue to follow your dreams.
Looking ahead, what are the most important steps we need to take in the next decade to ensure the health and sustainability of our oceans and marine life is up to standard?
So first of all, I would invest much more in habitat restoration. So restoring those crucial habitats which give us so many services. So transplanting and restoring many more Posidonia oceanica seagrass meadows. We've already started in Malta, but we are trying to upscale this, restoring coral reefs, and restoring all those habitats which we have lost over the years, and therefore trying to turn the clock back. These habitats are crucial, in supporting biodiversity, but at the same time in absorbing more CO2, capturing CO2 from the water column. So they are important sinks of carbon. Okay, and therefore they help us in the climate struggle as well. Okay, so that should be the first one. Secondly, introduce further legislation, banning more plastic products and making it more difficult for plastic to find its way into the sea. Okay, and obviously, thirdly, involving as much as possible third countries, those countries which are not part of any EU directives or any UN conventions and so on the reduction of pollution, because we need everybody to be on board. It's useless for a few countries in the Mediterranean to follow EU directives when you have other countries who are not following anything, and the same plastic and the same pollution circulates in the same sea, which is the Mediterranean. So that would be the third one, and the fourth one would be keep investing in ocean literacy. We need to make, what is ocean literacy? Ocean literacy is making people aware of the role played by the ocean in their lives. And we really need to keep drumming on this thing, We need to make people aware of the urgent need to protect our ocean. So we need more ocean literate individuals. And therefore, those would be the four priorities, in my opinion.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Eco Talks. A big thank you to Professor Deidun for sharing his expertise in marine biology. Would you like to add something else before we end?
I wish to congratulate you, obviously, Zain, for this initiative, and thank you for inviting me. And I obviously hope that people like you, obviously, will continue to fight the good fight in favor of our ocean and of marine biodiversity in general.
You can listen to this episode on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Stay tuned for more ways we can all make a positive impact on the planet. Until next time, stay eco.